The wagon wheel hit ice beneath fresh snow. Henry felt the lurch before he heard the crack. Everything slowed, supplies sliding, his 3 sons crying out, the world tilting wrong. His shoulder slammed frozen ground hard enough to steal his breath. When he looked up, 3 small faces stared down at him from the wagon bed. Snow was already collecting on their eyelashes. Their breath hung visible in the dying Christmas Eve light. "Papa," Michael's voice cracked. He was 10, trying to be brave, failing. Henry pushed himself up, pain screaming through his shoulder. The wagon lay on its side, one wheel spinning uselessly. The axle, he could see it even through the thickening snow, cracked clean through. "Everyone out. Careful now." They climbed down, small hands gripping the wagon sides. Michael first, then James, then Timothy. 5 years old. Timothy looked like he might cry but didn't. Good boys. Sarah had raised good boys before Henry stopped the thought. Couldn't go there. Not now. He walked around the wagon, calculating. 15 miles to the nearest settlement, temperature dropping fast. The blizzard that had been threatening all afternoon was here now, swallowing the landscape in white. He could barely see 10 feet ahead. "Can you fix it?" James asked. 7 years old, still believing his father could fix anything. Henry looked at the broken axle, then at his sons. They were already shivering despite their coats. He'd taken this Christmas Eve supply run to avoid the empty house. The memories of Sarah in every corner, 1 year and 6 months since she'd died bringing their 4th child into the world. 1 year and 6 months of barely holding everything together. Now his grief might kill his sons. "We can't stay with the wagon," he said. "We'll freeze. But where do we go?" Michael's eyes were too old for 10. He'd grown up fast since Sarah died. Henry had no answer. Stay here and freeze for certain, or walk blind into the storm and maybe freeze anyway. Some choice, but at least walking gave them a chance. "We stay together," Henry said. "Hold hands. Don't let go for anything." He was reaching for Michael's hand when Timothy pointed. "Papa, I see something." Henry squinted into the white darkness. At first, nothing. Then there. A faint light. Maybe half a mile distant. Could be real. Could be his eyes playing tricks in the snow. Could be their only chance. "Boys, stay close." We walked toward the light. "Don't let go of each other." Michael took Timothy's hand. Henry took Michael's. His shoulder screamed with every movement, but pain didn't matter now. Only the light mattered. They stepped into white darkness. The light their only prayer. The light grew stronger. Henry half-carried Timothy through drifts that reached the boy's waist. Michael struggled but didn't complain. James fell twice. Each time. Henry pulled him up with his good arm. Kept them moving. The light wasn't a mirage. It was real, solid, growing clearer. A homestead materialized from the white, small but sturdy. Smoke rising from the chimney despite the wind. Henry's fist was raised to knock when the door opened. A woman stood backlit by firelight. Mid-30s, Henry guessed. Work-worn hands, dark hair pulled back, eyes that assessed injury and need in a single glance. "Get by the fire," she said, not a question, a command. "All of you. Now." She pulled them inside and shut the door against the storm. The warmth hit Henry like a wall. Timothy's teeth were chattering so hard he couldn't speak. The woman moved with swift purpose. She wrapped the boys in quilts, stirred the fire to roaring, put coffee on the stove. Water began heating in a kettle. All of this in less than a minute. No wasted motion. Henry watched her, dizzy with relief and pain. The house was spare but warm. A small pine branch decorated one corner. 2 candles. One place setting at the table. She lived alone. "Sit," she told Henry, pointing to a chair. "That shoulder needs looking at." "Ma'am, we don't want to—" "You'll sit or you'll fall. Your choice." Henry sat. She brought the warm water. Clean cloth. Studied his shoulder with careful fingers. He'd wrenched it badly, maybe cracked something, but nothing broken. "You're lucky," she said, cleaning the wound. "Could have been worse." By the fire, wrapped in quilts, Timothy whispered to Michael. Henry couldn't hear the words, but he saw the woman's hands still for just a moment at the basin. She'd heard, "Coffee?" she asked Henry, not meeting his eyes. "Yes, ma'am. Thank you." She poured 2 cups, handed him one. Their fingers brushed. Both pulled back quickly. Outside, the storm howled. Inside, something else stirred, dangerous, unfamiliar, impossible to name. The woman knelt to bandage his shoulder. Her movements were gentle, efficient. Henry found himself watching her face the concentration, the care she took with a stranger. Their eyes met for 3 heartbeats. Both looked away. "What's your name?" Timothy asked suddenly. The woman glanced at the boy, and her expression softened. "Emma," she said. "My name is Emma. I'm Timothy. That's James, and that's Michael, and that's Papa." "Henry," he said. "Henry Morrison." "We're grateful, ma'am." The wagon. "Storm's too bad to talk about leaving tonight," Emma said, standing. "You'll stay. I'll make supper." It wasn't an offer. It was frontier law. "A light in the window means nobody rides past." Henry nodded, too tired to argue. Emma moved to the stove, and Henry watched his sons watch her. They'd seen neighbor women since Sarah died, plenty of them, but none who moved like this, purposeful, gentle, present. Like someone who'd been alone a long time and remembered what it meant to care for others. The storm howled louder. Emma began slicing bread. Timothy's eyes drifted closed. Michael beside him. James fought sleep and lost. Henry's shoulder ached. Everything ached. But they were alive. And warm. And for the first time in 18 months. His house, no. This house didn't feel like a tomb. Emma made stew from what she had: potatoes, carrots, a bit of salt pork. Simple food, but it might have been a feast for how the boys ate. Henry couldn't remember the last time they'd had a proper meal. He'd been burning everything lately, too distracted to care. "Slowly," Emma told Timothy, who was gulping. "You'll make yourself sick." Timothy obeyed instantly. Henry saw Michael and James do the same. They responded to her in a way they hadn't responded to anyone since Sarah died. After supper, Emma set the boys to exploring with permission. She made clear they found one bedroom, a small loft, no children's items anywhere. On the wall, a framed wedding photograph, Emma and a bearded man. Both young, both hopeful. "Your husband?" Michael asked. Henry started to scold him for prying, but Emma shook her head. 3 years ago, she said quietly. "Winter fever." "I'm sorry," Michael said. Emma touched his hair, just once. "Thank you." She began clearing dishes. Henry stood to help, but his shoulder protested. Emma pointed him back to the chair. "You're injured. Sit." "Ma'am, we're imposing. You're surviving. There's a difference." James was examining the loft ladder. Timothy had found a small carved bird on the windowsill, was turning it over in his hands with wonder. "Put that back." Henry said, "It's all right." Emma said, "I made it. Winter project." "You carved this?" Timothy's eyes went wide. Emma nodded. The boy carefully returned the bird to its place, treating it like something precious. When full dark came, the storm still raged. Emma announced sleeping arrangements. The boys would take her bed. She'd take the loft. Henry the chair by the fire. His shoulder needed heat. Timothy looked at the bed, then at Emma. "Will you stay just till I'm asleep?" Henry started to tell him no, but Emma was already moving. She sat on the bed's edge. Timothy climbed in, then James, then Michael, one by one. They arranged themselves around her like they'd done it 100 times before, like she'd always been theirs. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She blinked hard, but they came anyway. Henry stood in the doorway, frozen. His sons curled around this stranger, this woman who smelled like bread and wood smoke and something else, something Timothy had recognized. Immediately. She moves like Mama used to, Timothy had whispered earlier. Not the same, but familiar in ways that mattered. Emma began singing softly, an old hymn, one Sarah used to sing. Henry's throat closed. He turned away, returned to the fire. Behind him, his son's breathing slowed, steadied. Emma's voice continued, quiet and sure. The storm battered the walls, but inside, there was peace Henry hadn't felt in 18 months. He lay awake long after the singing stopped, long after Emma climbed quietly to the loft. His shoulder ached, but that wasn't what kept him wakeful. The storm had forced them here, but watching his sons with Emma, seeing them transform into who they used to be, laughing, curious, unguarded, Henry realized something terrifying. The storm hadn't just brought them to shelter, it had brought them home. And come morning, when the storm cleared, he'd have to take them away from it. Henry woke to the smell of coffee and frying bacon. Emma was already up, moving quietly so as not to wake the boys. The storm had weakened, but hadn't stopped. Gray light filtered through the window. "Morning," Emma said. "Coffee, please." She poured, handed him the cup. Their fingers didn't touch this time. Both were careful. "How's the shoulder?" "Better, thank you." They sat in awkward silence. Outside, wind still howled, but gentler now. The worst had passed. "Light in the window means nobody rides past," Emma said suddenly. "That's frontier law." "Yes, ma'am." "So you'll stay until the storm's fully done. No arguments." Henry nodded. Part of him, the part that terrified him, was grateful for the excuse. The boys woke gradually. Timothy first, rubbing his eyes, then breaking into a smile when he saw Emma. James next. Quieter, but watching her with the same intensity. Michael last, older and more careful. But Henry saw his face soften when Emma handed him a plate. "Merry Christmas," Emma said. Henry had forgotten. Christmas Day. After breakfast, Emma disappeared briefly into her room. She returned with 3 small items: hard candy, an orange, a carved wooden bird like the one on the windowsill. "I made these for—" She stopped. "Anyway, Merry Christmas. Boys." Timothy took the bird with reverent hands. James clutched the orange like treasure. Michael stared at the candy. "Ma'am, we can't—" "You can," Emma said firmly. "Please." Timothy dug in his pocket, pulled out a smooth river stone he'd carried for months. Sarah had given it to him before she died. Henry had seen him touch it 100 times when he was scared or sad. The boy held it out to Emma. "For you." Emma's face crumpled. She took the stone, closed her fist around it, and cried openly. Not hiding, not turning away, just crying, while Timothy patted her hand with his small one. "It's okay," Timothy said. "You can keep it." Emma pulled him into a hug. Then James joined. Then Michael. All 3 boys and this woman who was a stranger yesterday. All tangled together like family. Henry watched from across the room, his heart breaking open in his chest. After a while, Emma wiped her eyes, laughing. "Well, I haven't cried like that in years." Mama used to cry sometimes," Timothy said. "Papa said it meant her heart was too full." Emma met Henry's eyes across the room. He couldn't look away. "Your papa's a wise man," she said softly. The afternoon passed in quiet activities. Henry checked outside. The snow was deep, his wagon wrecked beyond quick repair. They'd need to stay another day at least, maybe 2. He should have been worried. Instead, he felt something close to peace. Emma taught Timothy to knead bread. Her hands covered his small ones. Showing him how to fold and press, James helped set the table. Michael split kindling without being asked. They moved around each other like they'd been doing it for years. That evening, as Emma stirred supper, James brought her the broken wagon piece Henry had salvaged. "Do you know how to fix things?" James asked. Emma studied the wood, ran her fingers along the crack. "I know how to fix most things." She glanced at Henry. "Most things just need time and the right care." "We should stay forever," James announced. Michael said nothing, but his eyes found his father's, pleading. Henry looked away first. The second day dawned clear and bright. Sun blazed on endless white, beautiful and terrible because beautiful weather meant Henry should try to leave. Emma sensed it too. Henry saw her face close slightly over breakfast. Saw her rebuild walls he hadn't noticed were down. "I'll check the wagon," Henry said after they ate. "Boys, come help me outside." Emma said. They built a snow fort in the yard. Emma showed them how to pack the snow tight, how to make walls that would hold. The boys shrieked with laughter, threw snowballs, rolled in drifts. Henry worked on the wagon and watched them. Emma's laughter rang out clear and bright. She was fully alive, fully present. The loneliness he'd seen yesterday was gone. Then, suddenly, it wasn't. Mid-throw, Emma's face changed. The laughter stopped. She stood still, snow melting in her hand, staring at nothing. She'd remembered. This wasn't permanent. In a day, maybe two, they'd be gone. She'd be alone again. Emma turned away from the game, walked toward the house, composed herself before going inside. Timothy noticed first. "Why did she leave?" "She's just cold," James said. But he didn't sound convinced. Michael looked at his father, said nothing, didn't need to. That afternoon, Henry forced himself to work on the wagon. The axle was beyond his ability to repair properly. He could jury-rig something, but it wouldn't hold for 15 miles. They'd need to get it to town, get a blacksmith's help, which meant asking a neighbor for assistance, which meant leaving. Emma made supper quietly. The boys tried to engage her, but she was distant now, protected, kind, but careful. That evening, Henry almost spoke. The words formed in his throat. "Would you consider?" But what right did he have? She'd given them shelter, not signed up for a broken family. They'd known each other 2 days. It was madness. Emma looked at him. For a moment, hope flickered in her eyes. "Thank you," Henry said, "for everything." The hope died. Emma's face went smooth and blank. "Of course," she said. That night, they lay in separate spaces. Emma in the loft, staring at darkness, clutching Timothy's smooth stone. Henry by the fire, his shoulder aching less than his chest. Both grieving what hadn't even been offered or refused. Outside, the stars were brutally clear. The storm was over. There was no excuse to stay. Morning came too soon. Henry was checking the wagon when he heard hoofbeats. A neighbor man named Caleb. Checking his fence line, spotted the smoke from Emma's chimney. Came to investigate. "Morrison that you thought you were heading to town for supplies." Henry explained about the wagon. Caleb examined the axle, whistled low. "That's a blacksmith job. I can help you get it to town. Though, got my draft horse. We can rig something. I'd be grateful. Ready to go now if you want. Weather's holding." Henry looked at the house. Smoke rising from the chimney. His son's inside, probably still eating breakfast. Emma making coffee, moving through her morning routine. "Give me an hour," Henry said. Caleb nodded, began working on the wagon. Henry walked back to the house, each step heavier than the last. Inside, Emma was clearing breakfast. The boys sat quiet, sensing something wrong. "There's a neighbor outside," Henry said. He can help get the wagon to town. Timothy's face crumpled. James looked at his hands. Michael stood abruptly, walked to the window. We're leaving. Timothy's voice was small. Yes. No. Timothy shook his head. No. I don't want to. Timothy. Papa, we can't just leave her. James turned to Emma. Tell him we should stay. Emma knelt by James, her face carefully neutral. You have your papa. He loves you. That's what matters. Ah, but who do you have? Timothy whispered. Emma had no answer. Her throat worked, but no words came. Boys, pack your things, Henry said, too harsh, his own pain making him cruel. We're leaving. She's not your mother, Henry said, and immediately regretted it. The words hung in the air, brutal and true and wrong all at once. Timothy ran to Emma, sobbing. She gathered him up, held him tight, over his head. Her eyes met Henry's. Everything he needed to know was in that look. She wanted them to stay, but she wouldn't ask. Couldn't ask. Too much pride, too much fear of rejection, too many years of learning not to hope for things her body couldn't give her. Emma kissed Timothy's head, set him gently down. Help your brothers pack. They moved like ghosts. Emma wrapped food for them: bread, cheese, dried meat. Practical, careful. Her face was a mask. Caleb knocked. Ready when you are. Morrison. The boys climbed into the wagon. Nobody spoke. Even Caleb sensed something wrong. Kept his usual chatter to himself. Emma stood in the doorway. She handed Henry the food bundle. You're Sarah, Emma whispered. She loved you well. They're good boys. Henry heard the goodbye in her voice. She thought he didn't want this. Didn't want her. Thank you. He managed, inadequate, cowardly. Emma nodded once, stepped back inside, closed the door. The wagon started moving. Snow crunched under wheels and hooves. Caleb led the way. Henry kept his eyes forward. Couldn't trust himself to look back. Behind him. Timothy began to cry. Quiet, broken sobs that tore at Henry's heart. They'd gone maybe a quarter mile when Timothy spoke into the awful silence. Papa, she's gonna be all alone again. Henry's hands shook on the reins. Everything was wrong. The sun was too bright. The snow was too white. The wagon creaked with every turn, and each sound felt like an accusation. Timothy cried quietly. James stared at his hands. Michael sat in the back, face turned away, shoulders rigid with anger. Henry's throat was tight. His vision kept blurring. 18 months of holding everything together, and it was all breaking now, a quarter mile too late. She smells like Mama used to, Timothy said suddenly. But she's not Mama. Henry's hands froze on the reins. She's Emma. Timothy continued, his voice steady despite the tears. And we need her. Something inside Henry shattered. All his grief, all his fear, all his pride, it cracked apart like ice under spring sun. Sarah was gone. He'd been keeping his sons in amber, afraid to let life back in, afraid to dishonor her memory by moving forward. But Emma wasn't a replacement. Emma was alone in that house because her body couldn't give her children. But her heart had just mothered 3 boys perfectly, and he was riding away because he was a coward. Henry stopped the wagon. Morrison? Caleb looked back. Something wrong. Everything. Henry said, Everything's wrong. Papa! Michael's voice cracked with hope. Henry turned to face his sons. If I went back and asked her, his voice broke, would you want to stay? 3 voices shouted yes so loud that Caleb's horse startled. Caleb looked between them, understanding dawning. A slow grin spread across his weathered face. Well, don't just sit there, son. Caleb said. Some things can't wait. Turning the wagon was difficult in deep snow. The horses balked. Caleb helped maneuver. Every second felt like an hour. Finally, they were facing back. The homestead was visible in the distance, smoke still rising. Go on, Caleb said. I'll wait here. Henry snapped the reins. Inside. Emma moved mechanically, cleared the table, washed the dishes. Tears streamed down her face, but her hands kept working. Work was survival. Work was how you got through. The coffee cups. The boys had left them half full, too upset to finish. She dumped them, scrubbed them clean, the quilts. She'd need to wash them. They smelled like children now, like little boys' sweat and sleep and a sound outside. Wagon sounds. Emma froze. They'd forgotten something. That was all. They'd forgotten something and come back for it. And then they'd leave again. She couldn't do this twice, but she went to the door anyway, opened it. The wagon was there. All of them. Coming back. Emma's heart stopped. She didn't let herself hope. Couldn't. Hope was too dangerous. Henry climbed down, walked toward her. The boys stayed in the wagon, understanding somehow that this was their father's moment. He stopped 3 feet away, snow between them. His face was open, vulnerable, terrified. Would you consider... His voice broke. He couldn't finish. Emma didn't need him to finish. Yes, she said. The word hung in the frozen air between them. Henry stared at Emma like he'd misheard. I haven't even... Yes, Emma said again. Certain. Immediate. Whatever you're asking. Yes. Behind Henry, the wagon exploded with noise. 3 boys tumbled out, shouting, laughing, running through snow that reached their knees. They crashed into Emma all at once, nearly knocking her over. She knelt in the snow, arms around all 3, and sobbed. Not sad tears this time. Something else. Something that had been locked inside her for years. Finally breaking free. Henry stood apart, watching his family form around this woman, his family. The word felt right in a way nothing had felt right in 18 months. Inside, Emma managed, laughing through tears, before we all freeze. They tumbled into the house, bringing cold air and snow and noise. So much noise. Emma's quiet house hadn't held this much life in maybe ever. Caleb appeared in the doorway, grinning. Guess you won't be needing that ride to town after all. Not today, Henry said. Good man. Caleb tipped his hat to Emma. Ma'am, you've got yourself a fine family here. I know, Emma said softly, after Caleb left. They sat around the table. The boys bounced with energy, too excited to sit still. But there were practical matters to discuss. Where will we live? Emma asked. This place is too small for 5. My ranch, Henry said. It's larger, closer to town. We'll manage. When Emma's voice caught, when would we marry? Soon as the preacher can do it. Soon as trail's clear. Unless, Henry hesitated, unless you need more time, to be sure. Emma reached across the table, took his hand. First time they'd really touched. Her fingers were warm, calloused from work. Strong. I'm sure, she said. Timothy climbed into Emma's lap without asking permission. His now. James leaned against her shoulder. Michael watched with fierce satisfaction, like he'd personally arranged this miracle. Can I call you Mama? Timothy asked. Emma's eyes filled again. She cupped his face with both hands. I'd be honored. Later. After the boys were occupied with the carved birds Emma had made, she had a whole collection. Winter projects from years of solitude. Henry and Emma stood by the fire. I need to show you something, Emma said quietly. She led him to her bedroom, to a small hope chest at the foot of the bed. Opened it. Inside were tiny clothes, baby gowns, small shirts, knitted blankets, all carefully folded, carefully preserved. I made these, Emma whispered, years ago, before I accepted that children weren't. She stopped. I couldn't give them away, couldn't throw them away. So I kept them. Henry touched a small gown, imagining Emma's hand stitching it, imagining the hope she'd held, the grief when that hope died. Save them, he said. For grandchildren. Emma looked at him. Grandchildren. You're young yet, and boys grow up fast. Henry managed to smile. You'll have grandchildren. Emma, a whole house full, if Timothy has anything to say about it. Emma laughed, then cried, then laughed again. Henry pulled her close, careful of his healing shoulder. She fit against him like she'd been designed for that space. I don't even know your middle name, Emma said into his chest. James. Henry James Morrison. Emma Rose Collins. Well, Morrison now, I suppose. Soon, Henry said. Soon. That evening, the boys played quietly the comfortable quiet of home. Not grief. Henry and Emma sat by the fire, not touching, but close, learning each other in silence. Timothy came over eventually, climbed into Emma's lap without asking. His right now. Mama, he said, testing the word. Tell me about when you were little. Emma's eyes met Henry's over their son's head. She began to speak about growing up in Missouri, about learning to ride before she could read, about the day she and her husband came west. Henry listened to her voice and watched his sons listen, all of them hungry for her stories. For her, outside. The stars were coming out, clear and cold and impossibly bright. Inside. They were home. 1 week later, they stood in the small church in town. Emma wore her best dress dark blue. Practical, but she'd pinned a piece of lace at the collar. Henry wore his only suit, brushed clean of trail dust. The boys stood as witnesses, solemn and proud. The preacher was brief. Frontier weddings weren't elaborate affairs. Do you? Henry. I do. Do you? Emma. I do. And it was done. The community had come not many, but enough. Caleb and his wife. The shopkeeper. A few ranching families. They brought food, helped load Emma's essentials into Henry's wagon. You need anything, you send word. Caleb's wife told Emma, we take care of our own out here. Emma nodded, too moved to speak. They drove to Henry's ranch larger than Emma's homestead, room for a growing family. The house needed work, but it was solid. It would do. That first morning. Emma woke in a different bed, in a different house. For a moment, she panicked. Where was she? Then she heard it. Footsteps thundering down the stairs. Boys' voices, arguing cheerfully about something. Henry's deeper voice, trying to restore order. Her family. Emma rose, dressed, went downstairs. The kitchen was chaos, Michael trying to cook, James setting the table backward, Timothy narrating everything while getting in the way. Good morning, Emma said. They turned to her, 3 faces lighting up. Mama. Within a week, they'd established a routine. Henry and Michael worked the fence lines each morning. James collected eggs from the hen house. Timothy followed Emma everywhere, chattering constantly. She taught them things: how to make bread that didn't burn, how to mend clothes properly, how to read the weather. Henry taught them ranching, how to handle horses, fix fence, read cattle. They were building something, not replacing what they'd lost, but creating something new. 3 months passed. Snow melted. Mud season came and went. Spring arrived properly. With green shoots and warmer days, Emma planted a garden. Timothy helped, mostly getting in the way. But she didn't mind. She showed him how to press seeds into soil, how to water gently. Will they really grow? Timothy asked. skeptical. If we take care of them. Emma said. Everything grows with the right care. Henry repaired the front gate, work that had been neglected since Sarah died. Michael handed him tools. Learning by watching, James raced around the yard, chasing a jackrabbit. In the window, a lamp burned. Emma had brought the habit from her old house, keeping a lamp lit even during the day. At first, Henry didn't understand. Then Emma explained, 3 years alone. She said quietly, the lamp meant I was still there, still surviving. And now? Henry asked. Emma looked at the lamp, then at her family scattered across the yard. Now it means welcome. Means we're home, all of us. Henry watched her return to the garden, watched Timothy dig enthusiastically in the wrong spot, watched Emma gently redirect him, watched the sun catch in her hair. He remembered Christmas Eve, the white darkness, the desperate stumbling, the moment when Timothy pointed and said, I see something. One light in a storm, one moment when everything could have gone wrong, but went right instead. That night, after the boys were asleep, Emma and Henry sat on the porch. Stars blazed overhead, the same stars that had shone on Christmas Eve, but warmer now, kinder. Do you ever wonder, Emma asked quietly, if the storm brought you to me, or me to you? Henry considered. Both, he said finally. God knew we all needed finding. Emma leaned against his shoulder. Timothy asked me that yesterday. I told him the same thing. Smart boy. They all are. Because of Sarah. Emma looked up at Henry. I don't want to replace her. I couldn't. You're not replacing her. Henry said, You're. He struggled for words. You're what comes next. What she'd want for them. For me. Inside, Timothy cried out in his sleep. Emma rose immediately, went to him. Henry heard her soft voice, heard Timothy settle. When she returned, she carried the smooth stone Timothy had given her that first Christmas. She always kept it close. Do you know what he told me yesterday? Emma asked. What? He said. Mama, I'm glad the storm came. I asked him why. He said, because now you're not alone anymore, and neither are we. Henry's throat closed. He pulled Emma close, and they sat in silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. The lamp burned steady in the window. Not loneliness anymore, not survival. Welcome. Home. Family. Henry whispered into the night, too quiet for Emma to hear. Thank God for storms that bring us home. In the garden, the first green shoots were already pushing through the soil.